Welcome to this week's Founder Chat. My name is Melanie Yu, and I am one of the managing partners at Volition, where we build connectivity as well as knowledge in global startup ecosystems. I'm currently in Montreal. A lot of my team is over in Vancouver, but we have presence across Canada, the US, and Europe. And I'm really excited to be here today. We've been connecting with founders since April 2020 on these IG Lives. And this week, we're going to be talking to Spencer Kerber, who is the founder at Bessie. Yes, fantastic. So Bessie is a company that's redefining your digital grocery experience and bringing local natural meat and fish from the farm to your plate. I was checking out your website recently because I'm pescatarian, and I was like, I wonder if there's anything for me, and saw that you have tuna and salmon and some incredible and beautiful looking fish, which made me very excited. So thank you for including that. And I know that you've done so much work since you first launched Bessie, since we first got to know you. We had you as part of our virtual pitch Canada last October. I know you're part of Summit, the Startup TNT Summit as a finalist in 2022, and worked with my business partner Paul on some pitch coaching. You were also a finalist in the CSBW Young Entrepreneurs Pitch Conference in 2020, one of our good partners over at CSBW. But I want to get up to date on what's been happening since 2020, because I don't think that we've really connected since then much. So please, let's take this 30 minutes, next 30 minutes, and have some conversation, get to know a little bit more about Bessie and the backstory, about you, Spencer, about some tips you might have for entrepreneurs, where you've been, and really where are you going? What is that vision for Bessie? So I'd love to get into all those pieces. So welcome to your founder chat.
Hey, thanks for having me. I guess it has been about a year. So many different things even that probably aren't even visible to share.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Okay. So let's get in. As a starting point, I would love to, for those who aren't familiar with you, Spencer, if you want to do a little introduction to who you are and how that ties into Bessie, how Bessie came about through you as the founder.
Yeah. Well, I guess I jumped into Bessie like full time. There never was like, oh, at nights and evenings I'm going to work on this and slowly inch it forward. It was just like, I'm going for it, all in. I can only focus on one thing at a time.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest with myself. So I just dropped everything, left my job on good terms, and went after Bessie. And the reason was I wanted to work in food. I really cared about, I guess, like local and smaller producers and the way that they can interact with kind of food networks. And I felt that consumers didn't necessarily, they weren't going to go out of their way to make those local or those like environmental decisions. And so they had to be more accessible and just like a better experience. And that like very kind of ambiguous thought of like, I want to work in food. I want to be, I guess, like good for consumers, and I want to work with the small teams or the small producers. That was the start. And it began with just like me, a single farm, had a friend that was helping me like drive back and forth and set a couple things up. And then like way later, we work with a number of different farms, and we have warehouses in 2 different cities now, and a bunch of different products. And that's like our consumer brand, Bessie, which is, I guess, hyper local D2C food e-commerce. Kind of the secret things that are going on behind the scenes is there's a lot of automation and software that helps run our business. And and we've kind of split that out sideways as well.
Yes. And I saw that you now have, am I correct in thinking, do you have boxes? Was that something I saw? How does this work? If I'm the consumer coming to Bessie and I want to make better choices, healthier choices for myself and the environment, and this is this really great, beautiful looking, accessible kind of way to access natural meat and fish products, what does it look like to use Bessie?
Yeah, totally. I think like first and foremost, while it's called, oh, hey, I gotta move slightly.
It's okay.
We are like BessieBox.com. You go to the website, It doesn't work if you're in Montreal, unfortunately. But
Hopefully in the future.
potentially, yeah. In the greater surrounding cities and areas of Edmonton and Calgary, you can place your order, and then that order, I guess, like kicks off to our warehouse. They prep all the food and get it like into bags. We don't do boxes, kind of our old name. But
Yeah.
Bessie bag doesn't necessarily sound as
Doesn't
good.
sound quite as nice.
And then the customer, after they make a purchase, we really wanted to make sure that that was, I guess, like personalized and different than ordering something on Amazon.
Right.
Because the experience of that is kind of like I place an order, whether it's Prime or not, it's like probably tracking IDs and like updates, and like maybe it comes the next day, maybe it's in a week, but it's not really personal.
Right.
What we've built in is basically you make a purchase, you get a text message to your phone for like your community saying like, here's the next times we can like hand deliver it to you, with a bunch of options. And then all of those communications are run through kind of like direct messaging, and we can schedule all of our orders across like multiple different cities, and it's like routed automatically. So our team basically just makes sure that your order is like prepped, it's in a bag, it's got a lot of cute or like really interesting inserts and more that we try and make the experience really awesome. But within like a day to a couple days, your like bag is on your doorstep. It has a bunch of stuff in it. It's individually portioned, frozen meat and seafood. So we're talking like beef, chicken, pork, wagyu. We do alcohol, even we have sashimi grade seafood and a bunch of other stuff. And it's right to your door in a like cooler bag. It's reusable. And we collect them from, I guess, like repeat customers. And that's kind of like what the customer experience is. The suppliers, we work with a ton of different local suppliers local to each city. And pretty much everything from like the supply, the customer, picking and packing, warehouse, courier driver, they're all people. We don't work with gig economy at all. It's all like local people staying in the local ecosystem. So, and all people like hand to hand. We're not doing anything like from a massive spreadsheet. We're not drop shipping. We really care about like those things from a values point of view.
Yeah, amazing. So you were talking about houses based in Alberta. Does this mean people can only at this time order from Alberta, or are there many different places across Canada? Are you beyond Canada yet? What does your geographic reach look like right now?
On the consumer brand, there's like some really strict regulations around meat and seafood and crossing provincial borders. So that keeps us really limited to Alberta unless we did some we changed our values and worked with massive companies. And so it's not something we're going to do, which means that the model that we replicate has to be incremental. It's not like we open up and we ship the whole country. We need to open a dark store or like small warehouse in each city that we operate. Right. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. So you are in cities outside of Alberta right now? No, we're not. Not yet. Okay. 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 Gotcha. I'm understanding. All right. So when did you first launch Bessie? When did you first go to that full-time, I'm going to make this happen time in your life? When was that? February 2019. And then it took about 5 months until we had like a working supply chain and online store. And then we proceeded to not have very many sales for a very long time until some things snapped and we started getting busy. Amazing. Okay. So you've been working on this for, I guess, 2.5 years now. Yep. Yeah. So, and I haven't really seen you or talked to your senior pitch in almost a year now. So what has this last year looked like from, for what I'm trying to say? What does this year look like for you? What, where are you today? And then let's get into like, where are you headed to? Yeah. There's kind of two things that have been the last year. I'd say one is just dealing with continuous like supply chain and operational problems associated with COVID and more. There's a lot of disruption, costs are increasing. If we're bringing in seafood, for instance, our partners have to do like a lot more legwork and the cost of
Okay.
container shipping and more has gone through the roof. So there's like
Right.
so many headaches there, but continually iterating on it, making sure the consumer experience is pristine and improving. And probably the majority of the work that we've done is actually just getting smarter with how we operate the business. So I mentioned that
Mm.
we have some software that helps us run the business, but this like
Yeah.
really jumped forward in the past year. We hired, I guess, like more devs and put in more attention into what that would look like. So what this software does is essentially someone has a Shopify store, it plugs into that Shopify store and supercharges operational data and customer data. We
Mm.
bring those two things together so that like a real business with like products that exist in the physical world and have physical problems can operate in an e-commerce manner with hyper local constraints. So already it's like getting a little bit niche, but we really focus on
Yeah.
that perishables problem where you have local inventory in wherever it needs to be shipped. It probably needs to be done through like a courier or a point-to-point delivery. So we kind of manage regional inventory across different warehouses, interacting
Hmm.
with e-commerce purchasing. So it's like pulling from
Okay.
inventory automatically. We do
Yeah.
delivery orchestration. So we schedule all of our deliveries with our customers automatically and then align those through to different couriers that can go and do loop deliveries in
Okay.
a, I guess, like more economical and environmental
Yeah.
manner.
Yeah.
And then probably like the key component is we built like extensive customer communications by SMS. So all of
Okay.
these different like e-commerce things that are happening in the cloud, elsewhere, they come down to a personalized text message for different things for the customer, whether it's scheduling, it's providing feedback, it's taking a photo or sending a gift to our team and asking for like, how do I cook this? All of those things can kind of like exist on a customer just from the SMS. And from our side of things, see it in like a Slack channel and someone on our team can go and like thread a reply and it texts to
Mm.
that customer. So we have like very intimate customer experience, but we
Yeah.
can do it at scale.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, it sounds like it's come a very far way from the beginnings in 2019 when you were wanting to solve this problem. And now there's I assume you learned lots of other problems along the way and realized that these things needed to be addressed. And that's what your last year has kind of looked like, it sounds like, is kind of dealing with those like under the hood kind of problems that existed. That's really interesting. And I know that you've been doing great. I heard that you're on pace to double your sales this year, which congratulations for that. That's incredible. And what does the future of Bessie look like then with like these two pieces you're talking about and what I'm sure you've come across even more problems along the way in this industry. What does this look like for a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, wherever you want to go with it?
Yeah, I'd say I have a weakness in that I'm not that good at forward planning, but
Yeah.
in the like next little while, we plan on working quite more closely with some of our partners. So being able to take that consumer brand and we're already kind of like I'm in one of our partners' warehouses right now. So
Hmm.
trying to kind of coordinate our operations to be aligned with them and then extending that software so it impacts other businesses as well. So that's kind of like what our next, I don't know, already currently to the next like 6 months is like
Okay.
we're going to be way closer with a lot of our suppliers and then offering that same software to them for their operations as well. Just bringing that alignment way closer and really equipping the small distributor, small supplier with the tools that they kind of need to compete
Yeah.
against the massive companies.
Okay. Amazing. All right. We'll have to follow your journey to see what the next 6 months after that looks like and so on and so forth, which is totally fine. I'm thinking of a woman I talked to earlier this year that she was like, I don't plan for the future. I just like, have all these plans. And she's built this incredible company called Life Labs through Sarah Boland. And she's done amazing things with not having that kind of mentality of like, I need to know what my like 5 year, 10 year vision always. So I think it's always interesting to speak to people such as yourself, and to see where where listening to your customers in that kind of like really intimate way takes you, and listening to your suppliers and all the people you're working with and kind of iterating and growing new things or building new things. I think it's really, really interesting. So I'd love to know what, I was actually curious, pre-2019, were you an entrepreneur already? Were you entrepreneurial? How did you decide to switch to building your own business?
Yeah. I think this is like probably there's like the career answer and then the personal answer. And I'd
Hmm.
say from a career point of view, I went into mechanical engineering. I worked in some like oil and gas companies as an
Hmm.
intern. Really didn't want to work in petroleum at all from like ethical reasons,
Yeah, yeah,
and jumped into consulting for a couple of years. So I worked first like kind of I guess like venture capital like accelerator in California.
right.
And
Yeah,
then I worked at IBM for 2 years and got like really nerdy, a lot more technical, which is awesome. At
yeah,
the end of the day, I was still working for oil companies as consulting clients, and
yeah.
I was like, no, I like eating too much to like work to get oil out of the ground, and
Yeah,
I'm done. And so that was like a hard break.
yeah,
And but from a like personal point of view, I think for me, because I have, I guess, um, a degree, I have some white collar experience, and I do have some like privilege and safety nets. I kind
yeah,
of had the mentality that like even if this falls on my face, I lose all of my savings, I still have like the ability to move on. So the
mm,
actual decision to like start Bessie wasn't like it wasn't a hard one for me. It was more so like,
yeah,
oh, okay, I can go after this. I will really enjoy it. I will learn a lot, even if
yeah,
there isn't financial reward. And I'm comfortable with that. So that's
yeah,
kind of where the start of it came. Would I do another business
yeah.
again? Uh, like God, no. I think it's like really hard.
It is really hard.
And I really miss having like an awesome boss or manager. So it's like really
Right.
tough to move from like always being an employee to,
Yeah,
oh, okay, you're running something and there's a lot of people that rely on you, internal and external
yeah,
to your org. And I think it's
yeah,
like exhilarating, but it's also like, oh man, there's just so many things that you have to keep on your mind all the time. So
yeah, yeah. I can relate to that. Absolutely. So you talked about you anticipated learning a lot. I assume you have. It sounds like you have. So do you have any tips for maybe some first-time entrepreneurs who are looking to launch their first business?
yeah, I think I have. I mean, they're just so like everyone probably experiences it differently and it depends on the
Yeah,
business. But my first tip would be like, there's so much planning to be done. There's so much like accounting and legal and all these other components that go into a business. But especially early and even now, I
yeah,
always get excited when I'm building the product or working with customers. And I always have to check myself when it's like, oh, did I just spend like 40 hours this week doing bookkeeping or
right.
doing modeling or like building a management structure? All those things are really, really important. But when it's so
Hmm.
early, like I don't want to look back after like Bessie succeeded or like let's say Bessie fails. I don't want to look back and be like, oh, during this like critical moment of time, I spent 3 months doing like the perfect accounting system and then financial modeling projections. Like it's necessary and it will bite you in the butt later, but that's not the thing that's going to make it successful or not. It's just going to make something run really well, even if it's like not a successful business. So that's probably
Mm,
my biggest like advice for starting is there's so many like planning and all these things and boxes to check, but ultimately if there's no like value prop, there's no product, there's no customer, doesn't matter.
mm.
So
Yeah,
start there.
absolutely. Yeah, I love that. I think I hear kind of a variation of that piece of advice most weeks, which is something around talk to your customer, um, and like find ways to really connect with them. And in the beginning, that might be focus groups, that might be just a lot of one-on-one phone calls and conversations. It doesn't have to be anything innovative. We can just talk to each other and learn from each other. And then obviously as you grow, there's different ways to talk to your customers. But I think that's
you better have a lot of money in the bank if you want to outsource marketing or sales. We tried with pieces of it, with limited success, lots of lessons, but ultimately, like the founder and the early team has to own that, because they're the people that will know the best, and they must iterate on the product as fast as possible.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. Great advice. Thank you for that. So I know we're coming up to the end of our time. We just have a few minutes left. So for anyone who has just joined us, or if you're joining us on IGTV or YouTube later on, feel free to say hello. You can ask questions, of course. We're happy just to pass those along to Spencer. But also, if you joined us midway through, this will be posted, and you can watch it afterwards, and you can learn more about the beginnings of Bessie and about some of the lessons learned along the way, that what the last 2.5 years have looked like, what, how COVID has impacted this space and impacted the team, and what they've done to adjust to that, which is really interesting. So please do come back and watch it if you haven't seen the beginning. But in the meantime, you also had mentioned in talking to you before this that something that's interesting you being the messiness of physical food in a digital world. And I wanted to touch on that because it really piqued my curiosity as to what you meant with that. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you mean about why is this important to you, this messiness of physical food in a digital world? What does this mean? Talk to me about it.
Well, it's a lot easier to like sell, ship, do anything with a pen. And like, it's easy to source it, to get it from one place to another, have it sit on a pallet for a long time, get it like through a sale, know how to tax it, know all the regulations around a pen, and then put it in an envelope and send it across the whole world. All of those things have like been solved really, really well. Now, if this pen can like go rotten or disappear because it was shipped and there was supposed to be 100, but there's actually only 70, or it like something happens and the processing is paused partway through building the pen and now there's no pens. Those things happen with food like way faster. And if there's a stoppage or a problem, like it's over, right? And so with food, I find that it's really messy in that like it's not always the same size as the pen. The food can change sizes because the animal, especially if it's a natural animal, which is like the type of product that we work with, natural animals and natural, I guess, farming or fishing means natural sizes and natural problems. And that's where I guess like the variance and the flexibility has to come into food, and makes it really hard to do like drop shipping and do all these like things that have been solved for other things. And so that's what I love the most about food, is like it's really challenging. There's lots of flexibility and creativity, whether it's for grocery or restaurants or CPG, retail. There's like endless ways to solve the problem, and there's not necessarily just one like right way. So that's my favorite part. I think Bessie does something truly unique. There's probably like one or two, well, there's a lot of companies that I get inspiration from all over the map, but there's one or two that do some like really cool hyper-local regional models with software. And I just want to see what happens in the space. Like whether it's with Bessie or other companies, it's like my favorite thing to go in and look at.
Interesting. I've never thought about this, to be honest. And I guess you wouldn't unless you were kind of in the space. I've seen some issues that come up with a local food box that I get delivered to me each week here, that like they're constantly having to be like, I know you ordered this, but this is not what you're getting. This is what this looks like this week. And as a consumer, but for me, it's like I'm using that box because I want to learn about food and because I love food and realize that it's not like what we see and grew up with in the stores, many of us. So I guess I came to it because I was like a perfect customer to be flexible with what shows up at my doorstep. And I imagine a lot of the people that you work with at Bessie, or that come to you and order from Bessie and are a part of your customer base, are probably also a bit more open to things not looking like or showing up like what we might expect. But I think there's probably a lot of like interesting education for consumers in that as well. Like, what do vegetables actually look like when they're not washed? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Beets have lots of soil on them, for instance. But
Yeah.
anyways, I think it's really interesting and appreciate that that's something that you're interested in. I know we're coming to the end, and you've shared so much with us here over the last half hour. So I'd love to ask of you, what can we do as your community to support you and Bessie?
The worst, because I didn't prepare for this question. Um, I don't think we have anything specifically that we like need. If you do live in Alberta, like definitely check us out. There's like definitely some like intro offers and more, but I really want not just feedback on the food, but feedback on the experience, because that's like
Yeah,
going back to what we really care about is we want to make like food personal and that local like experience hand to hand, because like there's so many ways that are abstracted from the food that we eat, and so
yeah,
every chance that we can get to bring people back into that interaction is really important. And so feedback on like that as well as the food is
yeah.
awesome.
Great. Okay, so if you're in Alberta or know people who are in Alberta or just want to check out Bessie Box as well, you can head to bessiebox.com. You can also go to Get Bessie Box on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and I believe you're also on Pinterest, but that's just Bessie, I believe.
I think it's the
So there's
same.
lots of
I think it's the
places.
same.
Is it?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't
But
know. I just say what I'm told to say.
oh, and
It might be Get Bessie Box.
if you do like run a food business or a perishables business, even if it's like the exact same thing as Bessie, like you copied it or you copied something else, like I'd love to chat, because I don't
Cool.
feel like it's not a competition. It's all about getting those like smaller businesses up. And there's so many lessons that we've like really effed up that
Yeah,
I don't want other businesses to mess up either. So happy to share
cool.
and like message me for questions about that. I love talking anything food.
Okay, so where's the best place for people to get in touch with you personally?
I mean, anything Bessie, like I'll probably be able to be tagged in, but you can just look up Spencer Kerber, LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way. I don't know. Yeah.
Perfect. That sounds great. Easy is good. Fantastic. All right, is there anything that we didn't get to touch on today that you had wanted to mention?
Uh, no, I think probably the only thing that is tough is, or that we didn't talk about, is like running a consumer food business and trying to build software on the side, really challenging.
Mm,
So, um,
mm,
if I was to give myself advice, it would be to focus on one. Um,
yeah,
and we are kind of like working on that as well. So it's really interesting, and we're going after our passions and keeping our
yeah,
values in mind, which if we're doing those two things, something good will happen.
cool. Yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised that you went that route though, because you started off with Bessie being like, I want to make this for the consumer, make it great. But then you came, as you said, from that, the engineering background, and you had that nerdy software stuff behind you. So you're kind of like I'm seeing that creep very much so back in. So that makes sense to me that you kind of also have gone in that direction too. To me, anyways, it makes sense. But great advice to stick to one thing, but sometimes our personalities don't allow for that. So
So
it
true.
is what it is. Yeah, you make it work, right? So amazing. All right. So the last question I always like to ask is, before we sign off, is what is one thing that brings you joy right now?
Hmm. I actually live in the same apartment complex as my brother and his wife and 2-year-old. So I get
Oh,
to see my nephew on the good days, the sick days, and I don't necessarily have to hold him when he's crying all the time. But that closeness to family is so, so cool. I love it.
yeah. Very, very cool. Very cool. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story. I see we have people who've just been joining us. So those who are just joining, this is going to be on IGTV and YouTube. Afterwards, you can watch the whole 30-minute conversation and learn more about Bessie and about Spencer, about their origin story and some entrepreneurial tips and such, and all the things. So if you're just joining, make sure to come back to IGTV and YouTube to catch this. We usually have it up within 24 hours. Otherwise, I will be back here next week. I'll be here on September 21st talking to Stephanie Chan, who's the founder of My Care-Based Solutions. And they're an integrated marketplace for families to find pre-screened, affordable home care providers, as well as a suite of tools to monitor caregiving tasks and senior well-being. So a little bit of a shift from food to helping find pre-screened and find care providers for seniors in our lives. But I'm really excited to, that's why I love this. Every week I get to learn about something new, and really appreciate, Spencer, you being here. Really appreciate all of the founders who join us each week and share their stories and their tips and tools. It's absolutely fantastic. And I hope to see you, keep in touch, let us know what you're up to. And I hope to interview you again one day and hear what you're up to a year from now.
Yeah, maybe in person over food too. That would be the best. So
I would be into that. I love food, so I would be there. Amazing.
Right.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.